choose to enter the job market because internally they believe that now there's no hopes for them to enter university. And as such, it is a futile attempt to want to strive towards academic excellence. And as such, it's much better for them to just enter the job market. At least they earn a living. And this is particularly aggravated by the fact that they have to earn paycheck to paycheck, and as such they can't afford spending the extra money to educate themselves. Why is this particularly important, right? Number one, it is due to this very reason that the wealth gap between the rich and the poor are actually increasing. Notice that education is a fundamental prerequisite as to how much you earn, because the more that you are educated, the better job that you can get, the higher paying job that you can get. When you are not educated, that's when it becomes extremely hard for you to earn a high-paying job. And even if you do earn a high-paying job by some 1 in a billion chance, it's likely going to be an extremely fluctuative income. Second reason is that it makes education seem like a privilege rather than a right. Notice that as of now, only the privileged can get education, whereas by inherent nature, education should be a right. But thirdly is that rich people can afford private education, but they choose to take up public sectors, public universities, because it's cheaper and roughly the quality is roughly the same. And as such, this is unjustified because by nature, they are taking up quotas which were meant to be taken up by students from poorer families. And as such, this justifies intervention. I'll take you at 6. Second, you know what? I'll take you now, yeah, sure.
So for the poor families, aren't many scholarships available for them to get equal opportunity in universities rather than just going for the tuition fee reduction in general? Can they access the scholarships?
Yep, sure. So first of all, it's very hard for you to access scholarships to begin with because they take a very limited amount of students. So that probably means that only the very, very top 1% brightest students from poor families can even enter this. But secondly, scholarships are quite prejudiced in nature. They would rather take someone who's richer on the poor scale because they need some kind of security on the loan that they're giving you. In the event that the student that you fund in that scholarship defaults and doesn't want to work in your company, you want someone from a slightly richer family to be able to pay you back the amount that they spent in educating you. That's why scholarships can't work. Second structural reason that family income-based tuition fees is able to solve this inequality within education, right? Why is this true? 3 reasons. Number one, notice that internally itself, by reducing the amount of fees that is required to enroll yourself in universities, you give students from poorer families a hope that there is a possibility that they can get enrolled within universities. This means that there's a high likelihood that these students are going to want to strive in the educational field in order to actually put themselves in universities, right? But secondly, it's likely to level the playing field because now it's much easier for students from poorer families to enter university, whereas it's much harder for students from richer families to enter universities. But even though it's hard for them, it's still going to be very, very possible because they're so rich. But third reason is that you disincentivize richer students from entering public universities to begin with. And notice that this is a very important benefit that we get, right? By virtue of you making public universities fees also very high, it's unlikely that richer students want to even enter public universities. They would rather opt for private education because as of now, the fees is roughly the same, whereas the facilities in private universities are much better. They would likely opt for that. The reason as to why this argument is really important is because this is a mutually exclusive benefit that only we give, right? It is unlikely that opposition can argue for any kind of equality under their side of the house because it is hard for them to argue equality on the basis of a blanket policy, i.e. charging everyone the same. So they've been proud of those things.
I thank the Prime Minister for that speech. I'd like to now invite the Leader of Opposition, Kir.
Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Equal opportunities is what we look for as an opposition. Why will family income-based tuition fee in universities cause discrimination will be explained detailed in my speech later. But before that, I would like to do a rebuttal that is regarding the poor families not having much access to the education in universities. While this is not true because every famous institutions or universities you see, they have special scholarships that are not only meant for merit-based, but there's a special scholarship that is meant for financially hardship families. So this is solely for people from that background to access, and this does give them a lot of opportunities. Now, moving on to some definition. So what do we mean by family income, right? It is a total income that is earned by the members of a household, whether whether it's a family consisting of 4 members or it's a family consisting of 10 members, it's the total amount, whatever is being earned by the members, right? Now, what about the tuition fees? It's the fees that's charged by education institutions for their instructions or other services. Now, moving on to my arguments, which would clearly state how can this cause discrimination. So my first argument would be that it is a discrimination for higher income families, because implementing a family income-based institution fee system could unfairly burden higher income families by requiring them to pay higher fees solely based on their income level. This approach just assumes that all higher income families can afford to pay more for their children's education, and they just oversee a lot of other issues. For example, their personal financial circumstances, potential financial obligations such as mortgage payments, medical expenses, or supporting other family members. It can be seen as a form of discrimination against families who have worked hard, who have literally worked hard to achieve financial success. And not to mention, university is an optional education in Malaysia, and STPM exists to specifically help everyone. So the entire aim of this itself is being destroyed because it's causing such a discrimination. Because let me give you an example. There is a family having 4 members earning maybe around 15,000, and then there's a family having 10 members, potentially maybe having around 25,000 of family income. So the amount of money that's being earned by the family is just not enough to what do I say? When it comes to the university fees, every individual member, when it comes to like a higher family, when they are supposed to pay in a higher amount, it's just not equal anymore because this is only taking the consideration of the family income, be it small family or a big family, and that is opening route for all sorts of discrimination. And my second argument would be that it would reduce incentive for merit-based scholarship. A family income-based tuition fee system might undermine the motivation for students to excel academically and earn merit-based scholarships. If the students know that their tuition fees will be determined solely based on their family's income level, they may have less motivation, they may have less incentive to strive for academic excellence, pursue extracurricular activities, or engage in community service to secure scholarships. So the motivation is not education or academic excellence anymore. They know that, okay, since I'm coming from a low income family, I'm going to be discharged less. So they don't have this motivation to excel in their studies, or they don't have this motivation that would take them out and make them stand out in a bright academic level, even though this scholarships, sorry, it's not scholarship, this entire what I would say, the family income-based tuition fee system. This one is aimed for giving a higher scope for the socio-economic background, or giving opportunity for higher education for everyone. So the entire purpose is being defeated here, right? And this could potentially diminish the overall academic performance and competitiveness of the student body. So the incentive, the motivation is totally gone. So now moving on to, I would say, why we would suggest any alternatives. We suggest alternatives like scholarship instead of just generalizing and saying that we need institutions having tuition fees based on family income, because this is too generalized, and this can give a lot of this can open gates for a lot of fraud to even happen, because some families, they might just present to the university like they come from a lower family income, just by stating their financial details in such a manner, and they can actually take advantage of this. Even though the aim is to help the poor, even in this context, the poor people are being discriminated. They are the ones who are being taken advantage of, and it's they the one who is going to miss out on the opportunity. So as the opposition leader, we would proudly oppose this motion, and our stance is again to give equal opportunity for all, regardless of what socio-economic background or family income status they come from. Thank you.
I thank the Leader of Opposition for that speech. I'd like to now invite the Deputy Prime Minister, Kirkir.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Abid, to the most honorable speaker, the wise son of educators, and not to forget members of the debate for today. So I have two obligations, which is first, I will rebut the argument from the leader of oppositions, and second, I will give out our second argument from our side. So moving on to my first task, which is to rebut the leader of oppositions. So the leader of opposition said that it's a discrimination for the rich. This will burden them, and what if they have more family members, and overall it will discriminate the family that work hard. So firstly, it's important to emphasize that the purpose of implementing a family income-based tuition fee system is not to discriminate against any particular group, including the wealthy. Rather, it is intended to address the existing inequalities in access to education and provide equal opportunities for individuals from all socioeconomic backgrounds. So why is it true that it is true that some wealthy individuals may have larger families and potentially higher expenses, we must consider the overall context. The implementations of a family income-based system takes into account the financial capacity of the entire household, including the number of family members. It ensures that individuals from lower income households, regardless of their family size, are not excluded from pursuing higher education due to financial constraints. So moving on to the second argument from the government side today, under the keyword, which is it is government principal duty to amend the law and to make sure that there's one class of society do not overpower other class of society. So first, the duty of the government in implementing a family income-based tuition fee system is to ensure social justice and prevent one class of society from overpowering other. It is the government's responsibility to create a fair and inclusive society where everyone has equal opportunities to access the education and improve their life. So the second is the current status quo is unfair, as it perpetuates the growing wealth gap between the rich and the poor. While the wealthy have the means to afford high tuition fees, many individuals from lower income backgrounds are unable to pursue higher education due to financial constraints. And education should be seen as a right rather than a privilege. And it is unjust that only the rich can exercise this right while the poor are left in poverty. Third, correcting this unfairness is the duty of the government. They have the power to lower the tuition fees and amend laws to ensure that education is accessible to all. And regardless of their financial background, by implementing a family income-based tuition fee system, the government can create a more equitable education system that provides opportunities for everyone, irrespective of their academic circumstances. So next, the government is elected to represent the wishes of the people and protect the interests of all stakeholders, especially the weakest stakeholders, which is the poor society. So because they are the most vulnerable here. By implementing this, the government is fulfilling its duty to protect them and empower the weakest member of society. So as example, if the richer society goes to public university, that should be a public university that are affordable for the poor society. Don't you think it's like the rich snatch the rights for education from them? So this demonstrates that there is a gap between them, and it is unfair for the poor students that cannot pursue their studies. So that we don't want the facts that the rich getting richer and advance in their future, but we don't want the poor stay in poverty and do not pursue their studies, while if they pursue their studies, they actually can be very advanced and get out from their poverty. So in summary, it is the principal duty of the government to, yes.
Can you give me the definition of education from the government side?
Definition of educations? I think that for the definition of education from the government side today is that we want to make the education is accessible for all. Educations, the higher educations, of course, because nowadays we can see that after they grads from their high school, so the poor, when they know that there's the higher educations like university is hard for them to access, they will jump to the job market and don't pursue their studies. So getting back at my argument, to conclude, it is the principal duty of the government to implement family income-based tuition fee system to prevent this dominance of one class. So rectify the unfairness in the current system, utilize the authority to make necessary change, and represent the wish and interests of the poorer society. That's all. Thank you.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. I'd like to now invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Hi and good morning, everyone. I am Al, the Deputy Opposition Leader, and I'd like to start my statement in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'd like to start my speech today by saying that the government does not give me the definition of education at all. It's quite confusing at first because they do not give the definition. So let me give the definition of education. Education can be defined by teaching the younger generation the knowledge of the previous generation. So that's the definition of education. Now, on the other hand, we are not talking about regular education. We are talking about higher education, which is an optional education for people. You say that education is a right. Yes, I agree with you that education is a right, but to what certain extent? Education is a right. Higher education is not a right, as my opposition leader had said before. University is a form of higher education that is optional for everyone. Why do I say optional? Because the government of Malaysia have already created a free or a low income, not low income, but almost free and small fee education, higher education, which is what we call STPM, for everyone, regardless of what your income level. And I would say those are the most truest form of helping people without discrimination. You see, when you create a system of income-based tuition fee in university, out of curiosity, how do you want to implement that efficiently? Because the let me finish a few while, then I take your question. First, complexity of implementation. Implementing and managing a family income-based tuition fee system can be administratively complex and costly for university. Institution would need to establish a comprehensive mechanism for assessing and verifying the income level of students and families, which would require additional staff, resources, and infrastructure. This could divert funds from resources that other. This could divert funds and resources from other essential aspects of education, such as improving the teaching quality, expanding an academics program, or investing in future research that is conducted by the university, or even just generally improving the well-being of the student through infrastructure. And yes, I'm here to take your POI. Mr. Ikram?
Yeah, why is tertiary education not a right, given that it's a prerequisite in most jobs out there? The only alternative for poor income people is like starting your own business, which is also inaccessible since they don't have capital.
Okay, I will answer that. It's simple as that. Those are private company. Do you, Mr. Ikram, you do realize that Malaysian government, you can enter any government position with just mere SPM or STPM, which is essentially free for Malaysian citizen. But private company, on the other hand, they have their own system. Do I agree with those system? I didn't say yes, no, I say no. But you have to understand, education is a right to the point of high school. Primary school, high school is an education right. Government give it for free for everyone, regardless of your income. Rich, poor, you can go to the same school. Now, with SPM and STPM, you are able to enter the work market from the government side. And some job just require SPM. I hope that answers your question. So continue back to my point number 4 is that potential for fraud through income verification. You said it yourself. The rich there's a lot of rich people who are grabbing the opportunity to enter public education, public university, public institution, despite them being rich. How does that happen? Simple. Fraud. Student and their family may attempt to manipulate their income information to qualify for lower tuition fee, thereby undermining the integrity of the system. University would need to invest a significant effort for ensuring accuracy and reliability of income assessment, in which the resource is challenging to achieve effectively. This goes back to my point, where it is complex to implement the system. And yes, some people receive their money not through monthly paycheck, but through cash transaction. For example, if I have a business like a Pizza Hut, a McDonald's, let's say I have a McDonald's, I have a franchise McDonald's. Most of my business is run through cash instead of a daily paycheck because I'm the owner. I invest in that cash. My income may be 5,000 or 10,000 per month, but because I'm the one I have an accountant, I can ask that accountant to, say that my income for this month is roughly 3,000 or 4,000, just above the line to keep my business running without me getting profit. Does that happen? Yes, definitely it happens. How do you know? Because Malaysia has a university, public university we call UITM, where everybody there have to be at certain income level, and everybody there has to be a specific type of nationality to enter that university. And some people in UITM are more, not qualified, but earn more than the qualifying entry-level income to enter that university. Because why? UITM is targeted for lower income family, but people still did fraud on that. So does that mean that the system work? I don't think so. Because UITM just proved that people have multiple ways to cheat the system. Doesn't matter if you try to put income-based tuition fee or any other thing. Now, on the other hand, the opposition recommended we find another system, which is a merit-based system. What do I mean by a merit-based system? We mentioned that we have a problem where if we give incentive for people not to study by giving income-based tuition fees, what about it? Instead of doing that, why don't we create a merit-based system where someone who receives 9 A's in their SPM only have to pay 2,000 per semester, and someone who have 5 A's in SPM only have to pay 4,000 or 5,000 per semester? I think that is more equitable for all, because you are rewarding complete meritocracy instead of freeloading and riding on the facts that, I don't need to study hard. I will just go to university for a lower price because my family earns less than your family. That's not good. That teach people to be lazy. That teach people not to work hard. And that teach lower meritocracy. I want a society where everyone have a high merit and an egalitarian society. Yes, but to achieve that, we need to do it through methods. Like I said, our stance is equal opportunity for all, regardless of everyone, and we reject any form of discrimination, including income-based discrimination. Because like my Prime Minister said, this does not account for any personal financial dealing that may be to someone who may have a higher income. Thank you very much. I rest my case. Proud to oppose.
I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech. I'd like to now invite the government whip here. Also, Chairman, can I just reconfirm with you that there will be no verdict for this round, right? I can just give feedback, but I can't tell the debaters who won.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Gov whip, whenever you're ready.
All right, so am I clear?
Yes, you are.
Right, so I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that we need to make education accessible to all classes of society and not the richest, okay? So, starting off, I want to rebut the points given out by the first speaker. So, he said that discrimination, the opposition does not tolerate discrimination on family members because of the income. Right. So I think there's no discrimination here because we ask them, the family, to pay based on their income. So if you have a high income, you should pay more. Logically, realistically, you should pay more. And you have a low income, you can't pay more, so you pay less. That's the concept. That's the concept of it. So, and the first speaker said that equality, you need to implement equality in the system. And she gives, example of a family of 25,000 salary, has 10 children, and a family with 10,000 but have only 3 children. So of course, if you do the math, you can say that yes, those family with a low income but but not many children, of course their financial is more stabilized. But if you want to be equal, then how about we say that a family with 25,000 income and a 10,000 income both have 10 children. So if you see that way and you want to implement them, and both of them wants to send their children to university, which is discriminating which? I think the lower income family can't go to university because of that, right? So now I was really shocked, to hear that on their side, the opposition side, tertiary education is not, a right for people. Okay, so let me ask you. They said that, okay, you have STPM, you can work with STPM certificate. All right. Now, there can only be 2 problems regarding with this STPM certificate. Firstly, if you have the STPM certificate and you apply for a job for the government, like the opposition said, does it really mean that you secure the job? The government, if you have 3 candidates, one with an STPM qualifier, one with a degree certificate, and one with a master certificate and working experience, which one do you think the government will want to hire? Of course, the one with a master and of course with the experience. Secondly, they will pick the one with a degree. STPM certificate will be put at the last spot if they want to pick, if they want to get hired. And this applies to all right? I'm not saying that they don't have a chance, they have a chance, but you need to understand that there are people who are much more worthy because they have a much more higher education because of that. So to say that tertiary education or higher education is not something right is completely wrong. Everyone deserves a good education to get a good job, to get a good salary. Okay, now if I were to say that, okay, you want to implement the merit system, right? Scholarship. Like my prime minister said, scholarship, it depends. It is a prejudice. It is a prejudice. Because why? Because when we earn scholarship, we need to know 2 things. That firstly, if we get a scholarship, we will be highly likely to work for the company that pays us. Or secondly, we need to pay a percentage of the fee that we use in our studies to pay back the company. Now, If you get straight A plus and what for flat in all of that, then you get a scholarship. But in the end, you still have to pay. Is it really worth it for the world-class family? Is it really worth it for them to study, to struggle, to get a good scholarship? But in the end of the day, they need to pay. They need to work. They need to work for a contract. And a contract doesn't mean they have a permanent work, right? The people who are poor will remain in poverty if this continues, all right? But the rich people who in the beginning has a head start, all right, for example, they have a scholarship, and the scholarship and the company that supplies is going to know, oh, he's from a rich family, he or she is from Malaysia, I know he's going to do a good job because why? Her family will support the company, all right? The family will support the company, in which means that they can pay back the money that they loan. All right. So now, or if you're talking about another scholarship, for instance, scholarship that is the university scholarship. The scholarship provides universities or like support for the poor family members. You need to understand that, all right, we are aiming for accessible education for all people. So if in a university, half of it is from a low class family, so the university needs to have a financial support half of those. And if one semester is equivalent about what 5,000 for payment, if you need to financially support half of those students to pay those 5,000, do you think the university will do that? The university will not give out scholarship like that, right? It will ruin their financial support, right? Like my prime minister said, a university is technically a business. It needs to gain some profits. Okay. Now, and lastly, regarding about the fraud from the UiTM. So yes, UiTM has frauds, but what about other universities? Other 100 universities? Does that mean, do you want to take an assumption that because of one university, their family, their students do this? Can we just assume that all of other universities has the same weak system? We can't, because some of those universities, like the top universities, for instance, UKM, they will have a nice a strong system to detect whether they are frauding their merit or their financial income. All right. So I think that's all for me. I rest my case. Thank you.
I thank the government whip for that speech. I'd like to now invite the opposition whip speaker. Here.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Okay, so I will be starting my speech as the opposition whip in 3, 2, 1. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, debating today's motion, which as this House would institute a family income-based tuition fee system in universities, I would like to continue to oppose to this motion simply because there should have equal opportunity for all students. So in today's debate, standing as the opposition whip, I have only one task, which is to rebut all of the points given by the government side, hence make it easier for everyone to see why today's motion should fall. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, the third government speaker was talking about issues in job securing, and he was also talking about how UiTM and its fraud issues. So if you are looking closely, UiTM is the only university that is using the family income-based tuition fee system. So when there are lots of other public universities that offer merit-based systems, so that it refers to how these students have the qualifications, have the academic and curricular qualifications, so that they have lower tuition fee that they can pay, and it is accessible to everyone, and it means that everyone can enter using the merit-based system. So he was also talking about issues in job securing because they will not have the chance to succeed in their jobs when they are only using their certificates from STPM and whatnot. So this is the reason why we are proposing the merit-based system. So aside from the academic qualifications, these government institutions would also focus on their academic qualifications, because we are not looking for family income. We are not hiring these people if they are from a certain, they have certain socioeconomic background. So why merit-based institution should be proposed, because instead of the family income-based tuition fee system, because it is equal to everyone and it provides opportunities to everyone, because it depends on how productive you are, on how you can maintain your qualifications, on how you can maintain your stability in academics. So that is why I believe that today's motion should fall. So moving on to the the Deputy Prime Minister, in which she was talking about how low income people, she was talking about implementing a law on social justice so that education is free to all. Since you are not specifying on what kind of education, we have highlighted that education is already free to all, in which you have SPM, you have STPM. So these are types of, you cannot say that education is not free to these people, because education is already free. And when these public universities for higher education itself are optional, then it is not, these students, if they want to have lower tuition fees, then they should strive for it. Then they should have the motivation to work for it, because we should not only look for equality for everyone, we should also look for productive students. We are looking to provide the nation, students, and individuals who are working hard and who are looking forward to commit. And when you are looking for these individuals, these types of people in society, they should start from having a very good morality, a very good sense of principles in their life, especially when they are conducted or they are using from the merit-based system. They have a higher chance to succeed in their life, because if you are productive, you will have their chance. So it gives equality for everyone, because being productive and working hard on yourself is everyone's choice. It's either you want to work for it or not. And moving on to the rebuttals for the Prime Minister's point, in which he was talking about how low income individuals should have access, since they give these family-based income tuition fee system give low income students more access. Since I was talking about productivity of these students, we have seen lots and lots of students who are from low income families, in which they succeed in their higher education based on how hard they work for it. So when these people are working hard for their future, we can see that they are deserving of the low tuition fees. When you see how committed someone is, you would give them the opportunity to have less, to pay less, to reduce the cost for them, because you know that they are performing well in what they're doing. And when they are performing well, they have a better outcome so that they can integrate to society and contribute more to the nation. So I would like to support the opposition team by saying that since we have highlighted a lot about the merit-based systems, we believe that merit-based system is the best compared to the family-based income tuition fee system, because we believe that everyone should have their own choice. The productivity for everyone to work, how everyone wants to work hard for their future is everyone's choice. So if these students are working hard, they should have the opportunity to have it. They should not be based lonely or solely on their family-based incomes. So before I rest my case, I would like to clarify that we from the opposition team truly oppose to this motion due to the fact that education, equal opportunity for everyone. That is all from me. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the opposition whip speaker for that speech. Before we move on to the reply session of this debate, would either of the teams like a minute to prepare? I mean, just take it. I feel like you guys could use it. All right. To commence the reply portion of this particular debate, I'd like to now call upon the leader, the reply speaker from opposition. Here.
Yes, I am here. Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As the reply speaker for the opposition team, I would start my statement by my speech by saying, we reject all form of discrimination and vote for all equity and equality for all. And we see this House motion as one form of discrimination, which is income-based discrimination. I will start my point by saying I'd like to say that the motion sounds good on the surface, but lack facts to account for possible loss in the future, such as limited financial sustainability. Financial instability for university will occur regardless of anything that we try if we keep on the motion of income-based tuition fees. And that's why, as the opposition, we propose a new system, a more equitable system for everyone, a meritocracy system where you and me have equal opportunity and we shall improve ourselves. Not to mention that my prime minister, my opposition leader have mentioned that this is not only a form of discrimination, it is also reducing incentive to be good in your field of study. And you are not accounting for people. I can give example that if I have high income, but I have 5 or 6 or 7, or even 10 family members to feed, does my high income really worth it? Like my 5,000 really worth it compared to people who earn 3,000 but only have 2 or 3 people to feed? No, we are actually on the equal level. But why does this guy who earns 3,000 have more accessibility to education? And I like to say that education is a right. Yes, in Malaysian constitution, it is mentioned in Malaysian constitution that education is a right. I can't remember which article, but it is there. In Malaysian law, education is a right, to the point that the state can sue any parent who does not send their children to school. And I like to quote my statement by saying to school, which means primary school and high school. But that's as far education extends according to government definition, school. University, on the other hand, is optional, whereby we said that we don't really need that, but we need merit-based, we don't really need income-based tuition fees, we need merit-based. And you want to say, oh, what about the poor people? We have STPM. Malaysian has created a system of called STPM where anyone can take it without accounting for your income. Even if you have bad score, if you have good A or B or pass your history NPM, you can have it. You can take STPM. And it is good because why? Most government job only requires SPM or STPM. And STPM is just as good as a diploma. So the fact that I want to say that education is right, yes, it's right. And it's already been fixed by the current government. So no need for implementing new system that has been tried in an institution we call UITM and it does not work. So I like to rest my case by saying the opposition support equality, equity for everyone, regardless of who you are, and reject the motion, the House motion, for it is being discriminatory for people who is successful and have worked hard to improve society themselves and contributing to the country economy wholeheartedly. Thank you very much. I rest my case and I'm proud to oppose.
I thank the opposition reply speaker for that speech. I'd like to now invite the government reply speaker. Thank you.
Okay, I will start in 1, 2, and 3. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and fellow debaters, as the government side, we firmly stand by our motion today, which is this House will institute a family income-based tuition fee system in universities. So in response to the opposition's arguments, allow me to address some crucial points and reaffirm our argument from the government side. So firstly, let us emphasize the critical issue of university enrollment. It is an unfortunate reality that many talented students from lower income backgrounds face significant barriers in affording higher education. This financial burden widens the wealth gap and perpetuates inequality in our society. So how you want to achieve the equity, the equality you want if you're not implementing this? So by implementing family income-based tuition fee system, we aim to tackle this issue head-on. We firmly believe that the government is the appropriate entity to enact such system. The government holds the responsibility to ensure that education is accessible for all its citizens, regardless of their financial circumstances. By taking the lead in implementing this policy, the government fulfills its principle of duty of providing equal opportunities for every member of society. So our proposed solution, the family income-based tuition fee system, is crucial step towards making education accessible and to make the education accessible for the less privileged, which is, as I said before, it is a right of education for them. So this system will elevate the financial burden that are faced by these unfortunate students and allow them to pursue higher education without being hindered by their economic background. So by leveling the playing field, we create a fairer and more inclusive society where talent and dedication rather than financial means that determine their educational opportunities. So moreover, without the implementation of the system, we risk further exacerbating the disparities in our education system. If the government fails to take action, students from lower income backgrounds will be left limited options, which is they will resorting to find works and not pursue their studies. And this will perpetuate the cycle of inequality and denies talented individuals the opportunity that they deserve. So by instituting this amendment, we aim to bridge this gap and enable students from all backgrounds to pursue their studies. So this will not only empower the individuals, but contribute to the overall development and the progress of future education for our generations. So, in conclusion, the implementation of a family income-based tuition fee system is essential to address the pressing issue of university enrollment for students from lower income backgrounds. It is the responsibility of the government itself to enact and amend the law. That's all. Today, we as the government 100% agree with this motion, which is this House will institute a family income-based tuition fee system in universities. That's all. Thank you.
I thank the government reply speaker for that speech and all the debaters as a whole. So I'm not allowed to give the results for this particular round. However, I do have a lot of feedback that I think you guys could all benefit from. So give me like 15-ish minutes to gather my thoughts and send out the ballots. I'll be right back. Hello. I just wanted to check if everybody is here. Like, I managed to wrap up a bit earlier than I thought.
Yes.
We're here.
So I'm assuming all of Gov is here and all of Op is here.
Yes, we are here.
All
Yep.
right, cool. So
All right.
I'm not entirely sure how to like. Oh my gosh, my video is like really terrible. I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, Mr. Smia. Are you okay?
I am, but my video feed isn't. So I'm going to have to not use that. It sucks because it's online debating, and I really wish there was a better way to make it not feel so. I don't know. Anyway, so I was a bit confused as to how I was going to do this OA because I can't tell you guys things that are too obvious about who won and who didn't win. So for the most part, my feedback is going to be constructive, and I hope you guys understand why that is. However, later on, if you'd like an OA, once the breaks are announced, I would be more than happy to give you a full-on OA. Okay. So the way that I want to structure it is, firstly, I would like to talk about some general comments I had for both sides, and then I'll be going into explaining like what could have been done better on either sides, as opposed to like justifying why my decision went the way that it did. I think that's a bit more productive. All right, starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so for this particular motion, right, I think both Gov and Op needed to have a very clear vision of what exactly it is that you want at the end of the day. Because all I'm getting from the entire debate, even from side government, is that look, poor people need to have access to education. And then Op says, oh, okay, but like rich people and just people in general should also have like access to education, but let's try to prioritize the ones that do well in exams and stuff. All great, but I'm still not sure why tertiary education is important. And I feel like both the prime minister and the leader of opposition kind of fell flat on that in telling me that, like, look, when the vast majority of the people in your country is educated and not just primarily educated, but like tertiarily educated, what are like the effects that it can have? Does that mean the economy gets better because people are smarter about how they spend their money? Does that mean that democracy in your country is better because people are more vigilant and more well-informed when they're voting? Does that mean policies get better for minorities such as women, LGBTQ people, or people with disabilities? Like, how does it work? How does it impact the world that we're living in every single day? I felt like that was something that was largely missing from the entire debate that really needed to be brought up in the beginning half, but unfortunately it wasn't. Next time when you're dealing with an education motion, please keep that in mind, like not just for Rector's Cup, but like any upcoming tournaments. Like you want to talk about why education matters before going into the nitty gritty of, oh, why education matters more for like a certain group of people and why it matters less for a certain other group of people. Just blanketly, I needed to hear why it's good, why it's bad. Yeah. Secondly, I thought that like, so I think there was a large missed opportunity on opposition because I understand like when I first heard the motion, I was like, oh, that's a bit tough on Op. But then I thought more about it during prep time. And then I realized that it's actually not that bad because like, I think Ikram already mentioned it in his PM speech. And you guys can like feel free to chime in on this, but like, because this isn't like a proper OA anyway, like I would like to have a discussion. Like, you realize that given that universities are essentially businesses with people who are shareholders and like, you know, they're held accountable based on the amount of profit that they produce at the end of the year and all of that stuff. So what happens when you have this policy for a long period of time? These universities begin to realize that, oh, I only need to prioritize like a few rich students who would be able to pay for all of the expenses that the university needs, which means I don't really have to give a shit about, I'm sorry, excuse my language, but I cuss a lot. Yeah, like I don't really care. I don't really care about how many poor people, like poor students I have in my university because they're not paying me jack shit, right? So eventually with time, in the long run, what does this mean for tertiary education in the country that has this policy to begin with? It means that only rich people would be going to universities, or even if like everybody manages to go, like your lecturers and like staff would prioritize rich students. They wouldn't prioritize you as a poor student. And that could oftentimes reflect poorly on your grades, which means like all of that talk about like merit-based scholarships and all of that stuff kind of becomes redundant. Like I thought that if I was in op, that is the direction that I would take my case in. Like in the long run, you're fucking everybody over, not just like people who are poor, but you're also fucking over people who are middle income. And that is incredibly harmful because again, like when you have good education, it means like good for a lot of things within the country. So yeah, those were like general comments, but also on top of that, like I thought engagement could have definitely have been better. Like I thought that there was a lot of really good material coming out from like the PM, but also like from the DLO, so much really good material. But then like nobody's responding to these things. And so they're just kind of left there. Luckily for the PM, like their like teammates managed to like rehash those things and kind of like give a bit more context as to why these things matter. They tried to frame it a little, not very successfully, but there was an attempt and I saw it and I appreciated it. However, like you know, for the DLO, it's like there nobody's engaging to all of these loopholes that is being pointed out by the DLO. And I felt like that's also a missed opportunity. Yeah, in terms of like breaking down and fleshing out arguments, I thought both teams did a fairly okay-ish job. It's just that like cases kind of fell flat. Like any case that you wanted to run, you guys did run on like both gov and op to a degree where I am able to accept it as like at least a 75 speech. I'm like, acha, you know what you're doing. And that was a speech. So I appreciate that because a lot of rooms lack that, especially at the Rector's Cup. Yeah, general comments were that. So then moving into like the nitty-gritty parts of the debate. So what is the gov case? The gov case from the get-go has been that look, rich students have high access to tertiary education, which means they have better income, which means over time the wealth gap increases. I feel like there could have been a bit more illustration into like explaining how this could lead to the wealth gap increasing. But like, since nobody really questioned it from opposition, and it's something that ended up like standing all the way until the end of the debate, I can't really fault you on that. But the way that I would like, wait, before I go into that, like dumb brother. I would also go into like crediting side government for being able to like deal with the scholarship issue way earlier on. And I appreciate the BPOIs that were coming out of side opposition as well, where like the entire topic of scholarships. I thought Ikram did a fairly okay job by saying that, look, scholarships are going to be needed to be like paid back at some point. And a lot of students, they end up taking the scholarship, finishing their degree, disappearing, not paying back the money, not providing the work hours. And that's something that is commonplace from what I've heard. I have a few friends who are doing the Khazana thing, the Khazana scholarship thing. And like, yeah, I see that as being probable. I think in terms of like scholarships and all of that stuff, there was also a huge missed opportunity on side opposition. And this is what I said, where I was going to like, if I were to be debating this motion and I saw that side government is trying to say that, look, scholarships don't work because they don't work in Malaysia, I would have probably said that, like, who the fuck is talking about Malaysia? Like on a global context, right? Scholarships are not given by companies so that you end up working at their companies after you graduate. Scholarships are also not given in a way that you have to pay them back. A scholarship is supposed to be a free ride that is given to you by the university. Like IIU also has scholarships for like people who are financially needy. IIU has merit-based dean list scholarships. They don't expect this money to be coming back. And I felt like it was such a missed opportunity on opposition to like just like call them out on their bullshit. That like, look, Malaysia might think scholarships work this way, but the rest of the world doesn't. And scholarships do, as a matter of fact, currently exist. And therefore, a lot of the benefits that are coming out of government would have been redundant if side opposition had taken that particular approach to rebutting the scholarship situation. But what they did was they talked about how, look, we're going to give out scholarships, or we're going to like give out tuitions based off of merit. And I think that that's a okay idea in theory. I am not entirely sure about two things about that particular idea. Firstly, doesn't that already exist? Secondly, I don't see why merit-based scholarships or merit-based tuition can't exist side by side with a need-based scholarship. You know what I mean? I needed to hear some sort of exclusivity coming from opposition and telling me that, like, look, both, like, the reason why you can't have merit-based scholarships or merit-based tuitions and income-based tuitions at the same time is because oftentimes those are not the same groups of people. Most of the times people who do get like merit-based scholarships are people from rich backgrounds, like people who can afford tutors, people who can afford to have like extra help before they get into university. So then I'm just not sure how the mechanics of this would work. I felt like there needed to be like better engagement from side government regarding this, but also better elaboration from side opposition regarding this as to like why are there like certain mechanisms in place why this would work in favor of people who are poor. Something that I really credited side opposition for, and I think that this is the issue that they won on for me, because when I was initially writing down my OA, I I did it like based on issues, but then I realized that like, oh, I'm going to be talking on like forever and ever if I do that. So yeah, like the issue of the fact that understand that when you divide it or like when you say that you're going to be paying your fees based off of like your family income, a lot of the times you're not taking into consideration the amount of children that exist within a household. And I think that's very real, especially for Malaysia, because I have never seen people have this many children when they have this little money before in my life. But like, yeah, I thought that that was good. However, it wasn't like brought up over and over again. I needed to hear that in whip. I needed to hear that in reply as to like why, look, your best case scenario is where like nobody is like bringing in false receipts like they do at UITM. Nobody is trying to cheat the system. Everything is going according to what Gov wants it to be, quote unquote, equitable. However, it's still not equitable because you're not taking into consideration other things. Like I think Hadia mentioned that there are medical expenses, there are mortgage payments, there are several other miscellaneous payments that go into like having a family, raising children that are not being taken into account. It is, as a matter of fact, significantly harder to like provide for like 5 children on the same budget that you provide for like one child with. So then I'm not sure why there wasn't engagement to that from Gov, because Gov had such a like nice opportunity to talk about how, oh yeah, because that's also part of our model, perhaps, that like when you're talking about like an income-based situation, like the way that I would go, I hope my jumping back and forth between Gov and Op isn't too distracting. If this is confusing, you can ask me questions. I'm not on my meds today. So I was talking about, right, the Gov model in itself, I felt like it could have been a bit less simplistic in order to deal with like a better op as well. Like a better op would probably like really hammer down on all of these inconsistencies and loopholes within the system and why it wouldn't work. But it would also like talk about why, because of these inconsistencies, we simply cannot have that. The current status quo is something that works perfectly well, because there are like tiers to different universities. The way that I would have approached the current Gov model within the debate is I would probably attack a lot of like the fact that, look, there are separate universities that currently exist, like UITM, for example, where you can pay significantly less tuition fees. Even UIA, I think, is on the more affordable side, especially if you're like local. No? I don't know. You guys tell me. Like, it's pretty expensive for if you're an international student, but I think like the local fee is like somewhat affordable. Yeah, like there are options that currently exist, and it's like if you have the money, you go to Taylor's, and if you don't have the money, then you go to like freaking UIA, and if you have both the money and the merit for it, then you end up going to Like countries have a vast majority, like a vast variety of like universities that you can choose to go to based on your financial situation. There are also diploma programs that currently exist, which like doesn't waste 4 years of your time. It just gives you like easy access to like like a skill that can be used in a job, and it's also counted as a degree. So I feel like those were things that I would have done if I was in opposition in order to break down the government case that was presented in the debate. And if I was in government, I would have more like bits and pieces to my mechanism as to like, I wouldn't say that like, look, it's not like the family income, it's the per head family income in order to avoid that entire attack that came from Hadira when she talked about like in her LO speech onwards about like how, look, it's not going to be equally distributed because of the number of people that lie in a household. If it was framed as a per head income for a particular family, and I think that would have been a bit more equitable. Yeah, but right, I think that's about it. One last note, and I think I mean this to like both sides, is that you need to be a bit more charitable when it comes to like debating. What do I mean by that? I mean by, like, for example, I felt like the way that Op was attacking the Gov model is how you're supposed to be attacking the Gov model. I think, let me just refer back to my notes. So what do they say? They tell me, firstly, the fact that it's inequitable because of the number of people that a particular family has. Secondly, they talk about how, look, some people don't get a paycheck, they get paid in cash. They use this to downplay their income. This is something that has already been happening within Malaysia. Right. But like, understand that these are rebuttals, but you still need to be taking side government at their best. You need to be engaging to side government in a scenario where it actually does work out. Like, none of these issues exist. Why is it still such a bad idea? It's still such a bad idea because of the fact that it causes universities to prioritize rich students more, because over time it also means that the universities that prioritize like rich students more end up having better facilities. So they become the most lucrative universities, which means rich people still win. So it's not going to work, is the way that I think it should have been gone about. Like, on the other hand, like, I feel like it's a bit weird for government to like simply say that, like, look, despite all of these loopholes that you point out, despite the entire like moral problem that we have, like the ethical problem that we have in being able to like provide a more equitable solution to all of this, like, why is it that this is still a better alternative than the merit-based one? I think this is where you could have maybe talked about like how, look, rich kids gain access to tutors, rich kids gain access to after school programs, rich kids gain access to things like debating and ECAs, which makes them more eligible for a merit-based scholarship, which means that your world that you're trying to make so freaking equitable isn't even equitable at the end of the day. I feel like, do you get the distinction? Like, one is having small rebuttals and saying that, oh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because of XYZ reasons, or, oh, this is not how you should be going about a certain thing. But like, take them at their best. What if their way or their mechanism actually does work? Why even then it's something that should not be pursued? Like, what's it going to look like in 10 years? Those are like key elements that you want to remember when you're dealing with, especially education related motions. If you have questions, I'll be taking them.
Yes, I do have a question right now. So you said that we did not expand on the idea of how as it is like financial family household income is not just family household income. You have to spend it on kids, food, and other stuff, right?
Yep.
So I did explain it in my reply speech that it's not holistic enough. Maybe you didn't hear me.
No, but also Hadia spoke about that. I did credit that.
No, in that case, I have nothing.
No, I mean, yeah, like that was the bulk of the Gov case, right? Like the fact that because of the fact that there are so many other expenses, especially if you have a large family, like it just is not fair anymore. And I thought that that was smart. However, that's just not like the smartest way to go about it, because at best that's just a loophole. A loophole can be fixed, it can be taped up. But why is it that the principle of basing it on income is something that is not the best for everybody involved? Does it, and I think Hadia also somewhat mentions it, but she takes it in a different direction when she says that, like, look, it's going to demotivate students from wanting to do well. I'm not sure where the link was for that, but the way that I probably would have taken that is probably like it would motivate students to, in the future, for their own children, hide their income more, or wanting to retain a B40 status, even though you're clearly like among the top people, and how bad that can be, not just for like an educational standpoint, but also like from a taxes standpoint.
So what are you referring to right now is that the Hadi, my opposition leader, should, instead of going to incentive, we should go to my route where potential for fraud can happen on the best case scenario. Like every box is checked, but once you mention it, it has a possibility for fraud. Is that it?
So for me, it was a case issue altogether. I just don't think that that was the case that should have been run in order to deal with the case that Gov had presented. You know what I mean? It's just poking a lot of holes, saying that, oh, people can cheat the system in X, Y, and Z ways. And I get that. But what if people are not cheating the system? Why is it still bad in the long run?
So my take on your advice is that accept the government motion as its best. Like what happened if it works? What is the whole, even when it's a perfect system? Like what can we take back from it?
So generally when responding, I like to do it in 2 layers. The first is where I try to poke holes like you guys did. The second is I try to be more charitable. I go like, look, it's not going to work because of the fact that it's not equitable and different families have different circumstances. It's not going to work because people cheat on their tax returns and just general accounting stuff. But even if those were not the case, the reason why it wouldn't work long term is because it would change the way that universities prioritize students. Get it? There's an even if statement that needed to be there for me to be able to credit an opposition.
I think I understand. Like, what if it? I think I understand is that what if it works? Is that university will stop taking poor children because, I mean, pardon my French, you said it yourself, they don't give a shit. People, sorry for that. So for people who is poor, because at the end of the day, they're an institution that tried to earn money.
Yes.
So if they can get by charging 10 people who is willing to pay 5,000 compared to charging 20 people who's just going to pay roughly the same amount. Yeah, so they'd rather take the rich one who's going to pay their on time and pay a bit more money. No, a lot more money.
Again, this is all constructive. Like, I didn't give the win or the loss based off of the things that I'm saying, because like this is all like how I would have run the debate. And this is just for like development purposes. If you want an OA, you're gonna have to come back to me after breaks are announced.
What is an OA, if I may know?
Oh wait, for the last round, who was your judge? Like round 1.
Move.
Okay, so like an OA is like I will probably say something along the lines of, oh, I gave the win to Gov, or I gave the win to Op, and then I would have like structural reasons why my decision went as such. You get me? But here I can't do that. So like I'm talking about like pros and cons of both sides and what I would have done on both sides, so that in the future, if you have a debate like this, you know what to do. It's not an OA. This is constructive feedback. It's different.
Okay. And I gladly take it.
All right. Cool. Any other questions? I will take that as a no. Congratulations on doing so well on the first day, and I hope you guys do well on the second day and break to the semifinals. With that, I am going to leave, but you can probably find me on the WhatsApp group for active debaters if you want like more in-depth feedback on your speech in particular. I am always available for junior development. Cool. All right. Bye, guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So most of us are opposition team right in here.
You can leave, right?
I think we can, but I just want to do a short postmortem if
Sure,
everyone
sure.
is okay.
Yeah,